good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And welcome to Throwbacks, where we talk all things cool and retro. And today I want to get into one of my passions, one of the favorite things that I've got going on in my collection, that is physical media. I want to get into a lot of the good and a little bit of the bad. We got to keep things at least a little fair and a little honest and a little equal. But before we get to all that good stuff, I do want to take a quick lap around. You guys can see what I got going on in my physical media collection and see that I may just be a little serious when it comes to owning all of these movies. But let's take a lap around and we'll be back to talk all things cool and retro, especially when it comes to physical media. Alright, so let's dig in. We'll start off with the negatives. Let's go ahead and get the bad stuff out of the way. And as you can see there, one of the bad things is convenience of play. As you saw, put the VHS in, put the DVD in. What you gotta have? You gotta have a VHS player, and you gotta have a DVD player, or a Blu-ray player, or a 4K player. You get the idea. So that's one of the negatives, having to have something to play all these things on. And then on top of that, you have to have things that, even if you do have a VHS player, having a TV with the proper hookups, you might have to find adapters, things like that, which, you know, fairly enough, are a negative. Alright, and then let's go with the second negative. This may or may not pertain to most things, but price is something that is a big thing. If something you're looking for that you can't find on streaming or anything like that, you know, it's kind of a dark, deep hole that you're looking for, some things might be very expensive to find on DVD, VHS, and things like that. You know, and that's a fair criticism. Some things, like I have Beetleborgs, if anybody remembers Beetleborgs, or VR Troopers. For a long time, I think VR Troopers is just now on Tubi. But for, you know, a couple years there, when it was off Netflix, there's no way to watch Beetleborgs or VR Troopers. So if you want it on DVD, guess what? You're going to have to pay $100 for season 1 alone. So that very truly and surely can be a negative / positive, because if there's no other way to get it, then at least you can get it. Alright, and for my final negative, if you are one of those ones that only wants to buy, you know, from the manufacturer, so you don't like knockoffs, quote unquote, so the same thing if you have action figures, if you don't want to buy from Hasbro, Mattel, big companies like that, you don't want to do kind of indie things, having some of these series, DVDs, movies, etc., like this Salute Your Shorts, for instance, is something I got off of Etsy. Somebody made it in their house, but I wanted it and needed it as a physical copy, because I can see Paramount doing away with Salute Your Shorts on their network, so this was the only way going about that. But I can see how that would be a negative. Maybe you don't feel right about quote-unquote bootlegging a property and the original studio getting the money for that. But in this instance, it's the only way currently to physically own this. I don't believe they ever came out with anything VHS-wise, DVD-wise. So this is the only way to have that. So that can very easily be a negative for some people. Alright, now the fun part, the positives. So one of the positives is things that it's just impossible to get anywhere else, at least legally. I'm sure there's some kind of backdoor channels or YouTube deep dives that you can find some things, but some things, you know, just aren't there. But the only way to get certain things is to buy the old physical copies. You're never going to see the making of the coming out of our tour, of our Shells tour, on any network. You're never going to see the Mighty Morphin official fan club. I think I have the Mighty Morphin stage show that was sent out to markets to put out, you know, to advertise for the live stage show that they had. Things like this, you're never going to see on streaming. So if you ever want to fully understand the history of the Ninja Turtles, if you're a super Ninja Turtle mark or a super Power Ranger fan, the only way to really understand and love this stuff is to own it and to be able to watch it on VHS. Is the only way you'll ever get it. I know this is why VHS is so popular on the horror fan side of things, is because a lot of these horror movies that they were pumping out big time in the 80s and in the 90s never made it to DVD. Obviously never made it to Blu-ray, and they're a lost form, and some of them are kind of, you know, super low budget, things like that, but they do have a cult following. So some of those VHSs can definitely get into the 3 digits, you know, $100, $150, that kind of thing for some of these horror movies and things like that. So definitely a very positive thing here with owning these things is this is part of your fandom. I'm sure you probably saw commercials for at least the Power Ranger official fan club, you know, and you maybe didn't get to get that as a kid. Well, here it is, ready for you now. Alright, and now the obvious biggest part of physical media for me is nostalgia, is taking you back in time to when you're a kid, to when you're sitting on the couch on Saturday mornings at grandma's house, at your house, at your friend's house after a sleepover, staying up way too late playing Nintendo, Sega, Super Nintendo, all those things, and popping on a movie, popping on some TV, and just enjoying those memories. Or maybe, just maybe, your teacher was out and you had a substitute teacher, which meant it was time to dig into some Reading Rainbow. You know, so here's another thing, you know, being in a classroom and hearing unique things like the beginning of Reading Rainbow. Who didn't have that, see the cart roll in as a kid in their classroom and know that it was going to be a good time hanging out with LeVar Burton, you know, talking about, I guess, the perfect pig in this one. Not one that I remember very well for sure, but hey, you know, there you go, all the same. But, you know, a big thing right there with nostalgia is sitting in your classroom and enjoying a little bit of fun there. And speaking of nostalgia and going back to, you know, sitting on your couch and enjoying moments in time, and one of my favorite things to collect in VHS are these recorded off TV things. I'm always looking for these in store. Most of the time, for the good ones, I do have to get off of eBay and places like that. But here you go. Nickelodeon Christmas 1996, a nice block of Nickelodeon Christmas time frame. You know, this puts you right back in the seat, you know, on Christmas time. Maybe you're on Christmas break, ready to go. And here you go, Fox Kids 1994, the peak time for Power Rangers, for VR Trooper, Beetleborgs, like we talked about. Maybe Beetleborgs hadn't quite come out yet, but I think they probably did. And all that stuff. It's just, this is what it's about for me. And with that, I think it's kind of a 1 and 1A is commercials. You know, as a kid, we're like, oh god, commercials, come on, let's get back to Doug. Let's get back to the Rugrats, let's get back to the Power Rangers. But now, having these recorded like this and getting to watch them, you really get to enjoy those commercials, those fun. Toucan Sam's, the different toys, the Super Soaker commercials, the Moon Boot commercials, even just silly local commercials. If you're lucky enough to find a movie that are made for TV. Not a made-for-TV, but a recorded-off TV video in your hometown, like at a Goodwill or something. And even if it has like the news or something like that, and you can get some of those local things that you remember as a kid, which is always fun. I think I have like an ice skating video that I found here locally, which obviously the ice skating means nothing to me, but enjoying some of those local commercials that you remember back from when you were a kid is fun too. But you know, like I said, the national toy commercials and things like that, or the what are those called? The little breaks. God, I can't remember what they're called. But you know, the little tiny little animated things that they'd have right before the buffers. There you go, the buffers in between commercials and the actual show. Some of those classics that you can remember from these things is just. This is just what it's about. So my favorite thing to collect is these recorded off TV things for sure. But I do think that about wraps it up. Obviously, I didn't hit every single positive. I didn't hit every single negative. Just some things that were on top of mind at this moment of the recording. But that's just my opinion, and I'm sure that you have yours on physical media. You may love it, you may hate it. You may think, hey, everything you just said is dumb. I can find this on the internet. And maybe you can. But there's just something about owning it, sliding it in. It's something about owning it and sliding it in, let me tell you. But, you know, for me, there's just something super nostalgic about being able to do that and just own those movies, own those moments. But like I said, those are just my thoughts, and I'm sure that you have yours. And we'd love to hear them down in the comments below. And while you're there, you might as well go ahead and like this video. And of course, subscribe to the channel as we post new content every single day. But it is time to get on out of here. And maybe I'll just get a little bag of popcorn, sit on down, and watch a movie. But while we're there, maybe I'll throw one back. Maybe you should throw one back. But for sure, I'm going to throw one back. So for myself and Uncle BJ, we are going to throw one back. And we'll see you all next time.